Good evening, everybody. This is my brief history of Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia was founded in 1733 by James Oglethorpe. He took a bunch of volunteers from England. They set sail and landed in Georgia. Savannah, Georgia, that is. Notice Georgia. Yes, it was named after King George. That's right. As you see, though, on the map, it says George Oglethorpe. It's actually James Oglethorpe. That is a mistake on the map. This is James Oglethorpe. As you notice, he's in military garb. Well, he's in military garb because this picture was taken at the French Military Academy. James Oglethorpe actually turned down going to Oxford University and instead attended the French Military Academy. James Oglethorpe was a very smart man. Savannah was actually the first planned city in the colony. As you can see, the squares in the picture. Well, anybody who's been to Savannah, Georgia knows there are an awful lot of squares in Savannah that you either walk through or have to drive around. James Oglethorpe met with the chief of the Yamacraw Indians, Chief Tamachichi. The Yamacraw Indians were the Indian tribe that lived in and around the Savannah area. Well, James Oglethorpe figured, it's probably a good idea to go make peace with Chief Tamachichi and his tribe. And this led to peace with the colonists. There was no fighting. They shared the land. It was actually a very good thing. As you know, in some other areas of the colonies, there was a lot of fighting with Indians because nobody took the time to meet them, greet them, and just make sure everything would be at peace. John Wesley, he was the founder of Methodism. Wesley was actually a very good friend of James Oglethorpe. James Oglethorpe asked him personally to come to the colony and serve as a pastor. Wesley said yes, he would do that. Well, it only took Wesley 2 years, and he got in trouble. He caused a big uproar in the colony. John Wesley was going to get married to Sophie Hockey. Well, he would get married, but he would have to stay celibate. Well, Sophie Hockey didn't want that. She married somebody else. Because she did that, John Wesley refused her Holy Communion, and this created a big uproar in Savannah. Wesley would end up leaving in 1735. But even though he only spent a very short period here, of 2 years, there's a nice monument set up in Reynolds Square in Savannah of John Wesley. So, for even 2 years, he had a lot of influence. Savannah was also important during the Revolutionary War. This is the Siege of Savannah. I'm sorry, it's a black and white photo. This is probably one of the best pictures I can get. This fighting took place on September 16th and went through October 18th, 1779. This was an overwhelming victory for the British against the Continental Army. The Continental Army was crushed. It lost 244 men, and another 584 men would be wounded. The British only had 40 killed and 63 wounded. This man is actually big in and around Savannah, General Casimir Pulaski. He was killed on October 11th, 1779 during the Siege of Savannah. He was leading a cavalry charge against the British. He was hit by a grape shot from a cannon and was killed instantly. Well, Casimir Pulaski Monument is in Monterey Square in Savannah, Georgia. The first stone for this monument was laid by Marquis de Lafayette in 1825. Pulaski's remains were entombed underneath this monument in 1853. Well, this is Union General Sherman, who led the famous March to the Sea. As many in the South say, this was the war of northern aggression, not the Civil War. You ever talk to some old-timers down here, that's what they tell you. This is Sherman's march to the sea, as you can see in the map, Atlanta, Georgia. Him and his troops marched from Atlanta to Savannah. But before they left Atlanta, they burned it to the ground. Many might have seen it Gone with the Wind. Well, not only did Sherman burn this city to the ground, but along his march to the sea to Savannah, he burned many other towns down, smaller towns of Savannah, all the way down to Savannah. They would take their food, and anybody who fought back, their houses would get burned, the town would get burned down. Once General Sherman made it to the city of Savannah, he loved it. This is Sherman reviewing his troops when they take the city of Savannah. Sherman so loved this city, he loved the beauty of Savannah, that he gifted this to President Lincoln as a Christmas present on December 22nd, 1864. This is President Lincoln. General Sherman telegraphed President Lincoln, and it said, "I beg to present you as a Christmas gift the city of Savannah, with 150 guns and plenty of ammunition and 25,000 bales of cotton." Lincoln accepted. This is General Sherman's headquarters, which sits at 14 West Macon Street in Savannah. It's a tourist attraction. It's a very beautiful place. It became a national monument in 1976. This woman here is Juliet Gordon Low. She founded the Girl Scouts of America in 1912. Well, the Juliet Gordon Low House is one of the most famous houses in Savannah. This was the original headquarters of the Girl Scouts and now is a major tourist attraction in Savannah. Every year on Juliet Gordon Low's birthday, Girl Scouts from all over the country come here and they celebrate her birthday. The mighty 8th Air Force. World War II was founded in Savannah, Georgia on February 1st, 1942. These are the planes of the mighty 8th over the skies of Europe. This one was one of the first fighter wings to fight in Europe. A lot of you might recognize this man. This man was Jimmy Stewart. That's right, the actor. He flew over 20 combat missions for the mighty 8th Air Force. He served from 1941 to 1945. Like many cities in the South, after Reconstruction, up until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed, Savannah had its share of major segregation issues. As you can see, African Americans protesting, holding signs. They weren't being served at the Woolworth's counter, lunch. Here's a picture of them not being served, just sitting there. Most likely the police were called. Some of these gentlemen might have been beaten, thrown to the ground, arrested, kicked. It was a sad time in the South for this. It should never have. I still don't understand it. Martin Luther King helped bring civil rights to the forefront of this country. Along with him and many other civil rights leaders, finally got President Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act in 1964. This act would state no segregation in public places, no discrimination in employment based on race, gender, or national origin. Martin Luther King would actually go on to say Savannah was the most desegregated city in the South with the Mason-Dixon line after this was signed. It's pretty good. A lot of you might not know who this man is. This man is very famous in Savannah. This is an antique dealer, Jim Williams. He stands in front of his home, which is now owned by his sister. This is where he killed his friend, Danny Hansford. He killed him in this room, in the study, and this would become the basis for the book Midnight Garden of Good and Evil. Here's Danny Hansford, who Jim Williams shot and killed. This is the study where Jim Williams shot and killed Danny Hansford. Well, in 1990, Jim Williams would meet his fate and die of a heart attack in this room too. And this, of course, would become one of the best-selling books about Savannah. And yes, it's all true. Written by John Barrett, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. The statue in the book actually had to be taken out of Bonaventure Cemetery because people were trying to steal it, and they actually have it in the visitor center in Savannah. In 1997, Clint Eastwood turned this John Barrett's book into a hit movie, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. It starred Kevin Spacey, John Cusack, and it was actually filmed right here in Savannah. Well, this concludes my presentation on the brief history of Savannah. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.